What's up, guys? My name is Elias, and this week, Marvel Studios' The Fantastic Four First Steps finally releases in theaters to kick off Phase 6 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, as the first entry in our Everything Fantastic Four watch list, let's talk about the unreleased Fantastic Four movie from 1994. One does not simply talk about the quality of 1994's technically unreleased Fantastic Four film without first mentioning the story behind its infamous conception. Though the Fantastic Four made their comic book debut in 1961, filmmakers were trying to crack the code on how to make a live action version of Marvel's first family in the 1980s. So story has it that German producer Bernd Eichinger, I think I'm saying his name correctly, met with the legendary Stan Lee in 1983 to purchase the property's film rights for $250,000. But he didn't team up with late producer Roger Corman until 1992 to produce it for a measly $1 million due to the rights at risk of expiring. Music video director Ole Sassoon helmed the project based on a screenplay by Craig J. Nevian and Kevin Rock, and The Fantastic Four was shot and completed by early 1993, with principal photography lasting a mere 21 days, which is highly unusual and completely unheard of for comic book movies nowadays. Here's the thing. Even with all the hype surrounding the film in 1994 and the cast doing numerous press junkets to promote it, the movie was shelved, with some believing that Corman simply agreed to produce the film just to keep the rights, or that he had hoped for a higher budget to help the film achieve its fullest potential. But Eichinger himself admitted to accepting payment from famous Spider-Man producer Avi Arad to not release the film, to which Arad apparently ordered every copy of the movie to be erased from existence. However, the movie became a glorified cult classic through bootleg VHS footage that eventually made its way online, as well as the documentary about the whole endeavor called Doomed: The Untold Story of Roger Corman's Fantastic Four. I'll link them both below, but thank God for YouTube. So, while by no means a great film, its campiness and unrealized potential is actually kind of endearing. Alex Hyde White is believable as Mr. Fantastic, though he has an unusual age gap with his right hand love interest in Rebecca Staub's Invincible Woman. Jay Underwood is likable as the Human Torch, and Carl Ciarfalio as the Thing is remarkable given the practical effects at the time, with Michael Bailey Smith playing Ben Grimm in human form, and he also gives one of the worst line deliveries ever of, "Hey, Mrs. Storm, can Johnny and Sue come to space with us?" It's hilarious. Joseph Culp, however, is widely regarded as one of the best renditions of Doctor Doom yet, and the man always vowed to redo the film given the chance, if only to really show what he was capable of in the role. And not for nothing, this guy just seems to be having the most fun out of everybody in the cast, and probably the most fun out of everybody even watching the movie. Sure, the special effects don't hold up like at all, especially where Johnny's Human Torch transformation is concerned. The dialogue is the cheesiest of the cheese, and there's a subplot involving this goblin looking dude named the Jeweler seeking to marry Kat Green's Alicia Masters for inexplicable reasons. And there's no fight choreography. All of the fights are cut away with some weird edits that I've just never really seen before in a comic book movie. Nevertheless, it's probably the most fun adaptation of Jack Kirby's source material and almost serves as a love letter to the comic book movies of the old days. Not saying it's a good film, but it is pretty fun to watch. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that the filmmakers behind this movie were well intentioned and pretty passionate in attempting to make this borderline dumpster fire of a B movie actually good and coherent. At least it's hilariously goofy and just a fun one time watch, if only just to see how far the most popular team in comic book movies has come. If this is one of your top favorites, though, you may need to reevaluate your life choices. As the second entry in our Fantastic Four watch list, let's talk about Fantastic Four from 2005. In the early 2000s, the guy responsible for directing the first two Harry Potter movies, Chris Columbus, no relation, wrote an epic screenplay for Marvel's first family and was set to direct as well. But due to Fox's reservations about the technological challenges and budget concerns, Columbus dropped out. Enter Tim Story, the guy who directed Barbershop. The studio wanted to make the Fantastic Four's first cinematic outing accessible to the masses with loads of laughs, engaging fights, and a top-notch story, but most importantly, a product that stuck as close to the source material as possible. Now, when I was a kid watching this in theaters with my mom and my cousins, I was so excited to finally get to see the friggin' Fantastic Four on the big screen. From famed composer Michael Giacchino's infectious score and the cast's dynamic chemistry to the perfectly heartfelt balance between drama and comedy, this movie gave MCU vibes before the MCU was even a thing. Just a few days in space, it'll be great. What's the worst that could happen? A lot, apparently. The team's space expedition is a wonder in itself, as each member of the ship is bestowed with unnatural abilities through what seemed like divine intervention. Once they make it back to Earth, all is well until transformations take place and a horrific accident on the Brooklyn Bridge makes the world at large aware of the brand new superhero squad in one of the coolest scenes in the movie, I might add. Johnny rushes into action to save a little girl, engulfed but unharmed by the roaring flames. Sue blocks the fire with her invisible force field while Reed stretches just enough to catch a falling firefighter. Ben musters every ounce of his brute strength to pull the fire truck from off the ledge of the bridge, and then the crowd goes wild. All that to say, no matter what happened to these destiny-riddled astronauts, they're good people at heart who instinctively give no thought to their own lives as long as the civilians are safe. The newly dubbed Fantastic Four's natural heroism is the perfect foil to Victor Von Doom, whom the late Julian McMahon absolutely killed at playing, who has always put his own selfish needs over others, and as a sociopath granted superpowers, he becomes even more dangerous than ever, forcing them all to work together and battle his threat the only way they can, as a true team. It's kind of awe-inspiring to see everyone's abilities displayed in full after Thing goes toe-to-toe with Doctor Doom himself. Human Torch turns the heat up to supernova, surrounding the villain in hellfire, with Invisible Woman trapping it in a force field. Mr. Fantastic forms a slide of sorts to blast Doom with frigid water, and though the Metal Man lives to fight another day, so does the Four. The ending never ceases to put a big smile on my face as Johnny roasts Ben, figuratively, and flies up in the air to form a fiery four with the catchy score leading us out. I just love this movie, man. Not only do the special effects still hold up 20 years later, but the lighthearted jokes, the refreshing simplicity of the story, the cast charisma, everything about it is just absolutely enjoyable, and in my opinion, helped pave the way for the MCU. That early 2000s feel was a vibe, man. And I just wish we got more movies like it. Like, sure, you can argue that it's a bit light on the action, but none of that seems to matter as its quick pacing keeps it a relatively smooth, easy, and fun watch. I can't tell you how excited I was as a kid to come out of the theater and yell, "Flame on!" just to see if I could burst into flames and fly up into the sky. And at the end of the day, isn't that the job of a comic book movie to appease that imaginative side of our humanity? Filled with B-movie moments and dialogue, visually interesting cinematography, and some of the most human depictions of popular comic book characters in live action. This is a dope flick, and I'll always come back to it, and in my personal opinion, it's one of the most underrated comic book movies of my generation. Plus, I'm a sucker for origin stories. As the third entry in our Fantastic Four watch list, let's talk about 2007's Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer. First off, I'd like to preface this review by saying that I really, really like Rise of the Silver Surfer. I grew up with it. I saw it at a theater with my mom when it came out, so there's a sense of nostalgia in it for me. And when I was preparing this watch list before First Steps, I was the most excited to revisit this one, seeing as I hadn't watched it in what seemed like a few years. That being said, it's not quite as good as I remember. Suffering from a troubled production, studio interference, and creative differences, Rise of the Silver Surfer faced an uphill battle from the jump. From the movie's rushed story and short runtime to the blasphemous decision of turning the almighty Galactus into a giant fart cloud, it seems the Fox executives and the filmmakers themselves just couldn't agree on a direction, resulting in a rather disjointed movie. Here's the thing. I spared you guys in the last video, so it's only right that I do it here. I still had a lot of fun with it. The cast here is funnier than ever with some great bits like the infamous club scene or anytime Johnny rips on Ben. There's double the action compared to the first one. I love me some Silver Surfer, and the movie just moves at a brisk pace with almost no downtime to even comprehend anything that's going on. Sure, the 90-minute runtime hinders the story in the sense of not allowing the Silver Surfer scenes to breathe, giving the character next to nothing to really do until he finally blows up Galactus in the end, which he could have done a long time ago and spared dozens of other worlds destruction. But just saying. But everything with the Silver Surfer is undeniably awesome, and the fact that he's voiced by Lawrence Fishburne, aka Morpheus himself, fantastic. The main subplot here is that Reed and Sue just can't help but feel stuck in this life of heroism while trying to get married and lead normal lives, which is basically impossible when you're the world's only superheroes. Sorry. Johnny and Ben don't particularly love the idea of the team splitting up, but it never really drives a wedge between them, even as Johnny struggles with his newfound ability swap issues after encountering the Surfer himself. Doctor Doom returns, of course, as a dastardly little man, inexplicably trusted by the government even after the events of the first movie. But the nail in the coffin for a lot of fans was obviously Galactus, who finally comes to Earth and shows up in the vaguest way possible, which apparently was Tim Story's idea. It almost feels like this movie had the recipe for a great film, having gotten the origin story out the way so they could just hit the ground running. But the final product is more like wasted potential than true greatness. Due to weak box office returns, fan backlash, and being critically ripped to shreds, a third movie was canceled along with a Silver Surfer spin-off, which I would have loved to see because yes, he does live in the end, which again makes me wonder why he didn't think to blow up Galactus a long time ago if he was just going to live and survive that. And also, why is he still silver when he's separated from the board? That doesn't make sense to me. Is that in the comics? I gotta look that one up. It's probably best not to even think about all of that. And still, while I'm sure Kevin Feige is stoked he gets to usher in the true blue versions of the Fantastic Four and Galactus for the MCU, I gotta say, I do appreciate what this one did, even if it basically missed the mark. As the fourth and final entry in our Fantastic Four watch list, let's talk about 2015's widely hated Fantastic. Let me just start by saying that I've never been so excited to see a movie in theaters, only to come out saying, what the heck was that? But that's exactly what happened in 2015 after watching Josh Trank's Fantastic Four, otherwise infamously known as Fantastic. Don't blame me, blame the marketing. Somewhat similar to the unreleased 1994 version, Fantastic was dealt a heavy hand of drama, studio interference, and creative differences behind the scenes while succumbing to an obscene number of reshoots. Josh Trank himself, known for the critically acclaimed Chronicle at the time, even stated that it felt like being castrated with how the studio treated him and his vision of the film. Producers were blocking out scenes before his arrival on set due to their disdain of Trank's darker take on the rather lighthearted source material. The death threats for his casting of Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Storm also caused the up and coming director to be so paranoid that he started sleeping with a gun. I mean, it's understandable fans wanted what was more akin to what it seems like we're getting from First Steps, but there's no reason to send death threats someone's way just for making a casting choice. That's just sad. Drama aside, I wasn't exactly keen on rewatching this one to say the least, though I did go in with an open mind this time around because, maybe I just misjudged it from the jump. The movie starts out somewhat promising, with little Reed's dreams of teleporting being shot down by Homer Simpson himself, even though some years later, a 20 something year old Miles Teller very clearly has an amazing presentation with his invention at a middle school science fair. His best friend Ben, played by Jamie Bell, is low-key abused by his older brother, creating the famous clobbering time through good old childhood trauma. Kate Mara's Sue Storm is a standoffish know-it-all with a butthole of a brother, and Michael B. Jordan's Johnny Storm. Reclusive computer genius Victor Von Doom, who Toby Kebbell attempts to make a real and interesting character, eventually gets turned into a glorified crash test dummy. Basically, while the casting itself could have been something special, nobody really played the characters from the actual source material, just twisted, asinine versions of them. I guess this wasn't that promising at all, actually. Regarding the structuring of the scenes, For a movie that's only 1 hour and 40 minutes long, it feels like 2.5 hours. The reshoots are insanely obvious. Here's a tip: every time Sue's hair is highlighter blonde, that's a reshoot. The flow and pacing of the film is just so incredibly slow, as nothing remotely engaging even happens until like 45 minutes into the movie when they finally get their powers. I'll admit this scene is kind of cool as Victor falls into the cosmic energy from Planet Zero, as they call it, which combined with the rocks that bombarded Ben turns him into the Thing, the fire that engulfs Johnny into Human Torch, the blast that hits Sue into Invisible Woman, and the. Well, I actually don't know how Reed became stretchy. Maybe I missed that. I will say I love that this new way that they get their powers is like something out of a horror movie. There's just something interesting and unique about that. And though the original movies made them fantastical and comic booky, I guess it would be quite scary to wake up on fire, stretched out, see through, or completely made of rocks just to have to fight on the government's behalf. I'm not even going to get into the deleted scene where the Thing apparently straight up murders a bunch of people on a mission. Cutting that was probably the smartest decision they made. At the risk of making things too unnecessarily edgy, the movie comes off as kind of pretentious and very annoying. I can respect trying to do something viscerally different with a property, but at least Batman and Superman had darker iterations in the comics. This is the Fantastic Four. This is a family that's happy to work together to fight incredible threats. And I'm not saying it has to be super campy or anything, but at least give it a sense of fun. Watching this made me super depressed and have to watch cartoons for like 3 hours afterward. It's just such an unbelievably cynical drag that I don't know how it got the green light in the first place. Overall, it's far from fantastic, and no, I won't say that again, especially when I'm kicking a movie while it's been down for 10 years. What a day. That's it for today, though, guys. So let me know in the comments if you've seen the travesty that is Fan Four Stick. What are your favorite parts? What are your least favorite parts? What'd you think of it? And are you excited for First Steps? I know I am. Hit that notification bell so you can watch my spoiler-free and spoiler review as soon as they drop. And if you like this video, consider hitting the like button as well as sharing this video to others so they could join in on the conversation too. Until next time, guys, take care and God bless.